Good afternoon. My name is Sue Hendricks. As a staff scientist, I also run the day-to-day operations of MBF Labs, a contract research facility for stereology here at MBF. I'm joined today by Paul Angstman, Vice President at MBF. Say hi, Paul.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you today. As I looked over the list of attendees, I saw many of you that I've met at previous SFN meetings and a number that I spoke to over the phone in the past several years. I'm really excited about version 10. Our spectacular and wonderful development team has done a terrific job adding new tools and improving existing ones to make you even more efficient and help you get more work done.
We're thrilled to preview some of the great aspects that will be a part of version 10 for our flagship software products. You may have seen some of these if you stopped by our booth at the Society for Neuroscience conference, but they got a bit more polished now and are just about ready for you to use. At this time, please take a moment to adjust the volume of your speakers. Our voices may not be as loud as the test voice, so you may need to turn up the volume. So the webinar will last 60 minutes and is divided into 3 topics. The goal for today's webinar is to introduce you to many of the new features and hardware options that are a part of version 10. Please feel free to submit your questions via the question window, and we'll address them as we go along. If you have additional questions that are not addressed by the conclusion of the presentation, please send your questions to info@mbfbioscience.com and we'll respond to you directly. Let's get started. Integration is the key component of MBF Bioscience systems. We've got new cameras, new scopes, new illumination methods, and they're all pretty awesome. And not only that, but we make them play nicely together. That's just what we do. Okay. To start off, let's talk about the Zeiss Epitome. Structured illumination imaging with the Zeiss Epitome permits capture of high-quality confocal-like images. The strategy is to capture 3 or more wide-field images with a grid pattern projected into the focal plane of the objective. And that's done right here with the Epitome device. These component images are then analyzed, out-of-focus light is removed with the grid lines, and the final image you see is comprised only of in-focus light. On the right, you'll see examples of the same region acquired in wide-field mode or with the Epitome in place.
With version 10, we're introducing Epitome 2 support. The Epitome 2 has the grids on the panel and we provide software control to switch between them. There's no need to remove the slider to change the grid with Epitome 2, and the calibration is adjusted automatically by the software. In other words, those plastic tweezers that you got used to in version with the Epitome 1, you don't have to worry about them anymore.
I gave a webinar on this very topic last month with our software engineer, Michael Fay. If you'd like to learn more about the Epitome and using it with our software, please go to our website, www.mbfbioscience.com, and watch it. Incidentally, this webinar will also be available to view on our website within 1 week. With version 10, we now have confocal support and control. MBF and Zeiss have worked together to integrate our applications with their LSM confocal systems. So if you have a Zeiss 710 confocal, we can now control it. This allows direct control of your confocal system for use in stereology or for analyzing neurons with autoneuron or Neurolucida.
In addition, we will manage the registration between the imaging modalities. An example is you might acquire a low mag region of interest with a camera that we control or one that Zen controls. We'll put the image stacks that you acquire later at higher magnification into the right coordinate space. We'll even handle different sizes and deviations in parcentricity.
So we're going to control Zen within our software application. So for SRS image stack acquisitions, we will control the movements of the XY stage, and Zen will control the stage or the acquisition Z stage in order to get the image stacks.
If Zen is has the controlling hardware, we will go through Zen to move and keep track and be in coordinate conjunction with Zen's coordinate space and use their hardware.
If you have other confocal systems, we now offer open confocal support. So this allows you to do confocal stereology with non-integrated hardware systems. This means that our software will control a microscope stage on the confocal and control the Z stage. We'll perform systematic random sampling, image registration, counting, and the results, while the confocal system will be in charge of acquiring the image data. If you combine this image stack acquisition with the montage module, you can create an entire region of interest or image a neuron across multiple fields of view. One way to increase the utility of your system is to add multi-channel fluorescence imaging to your bright field system with an additional monochrome camera. This allows you to do multimodal imaging. So right here on the right, I have an example here of a 4-channel multimodal image. It's a bright field image with 3 fluorescent channels combined together to create a 4-channel image. This is especially handy if you've got a fluorescent label that is not ubiquitous and you need the resultant image data that can be provided by the bright field modality to get context for where the marker is actually being displayed. And so what this allows you to do seamlessly is create a bright field and 3-channel fluorescent image.
One of the issues we've had in the past with dual cameras is that on one camera port you may have a bright field camera and the other one might be the fluorescent monochrome camera, and one or the other is flipped. On the fly now, in version 10, we will flip the desired camera to make a consistent live video orientation between the 2 different cameras. That way you don't have to have that mental context switch, so that when you switch between cameras, things will be lined up even better.
Ruth asks whether or not you can capture bright field and fluorescent images from the same camera. I actually did for this particular image. I used my monochrome AxioCam camera that was connected to my Zeiss Epitome to create this 4-channel image. Using the device command sequences, you can set it up so that you can actually create that seamlessly. Thanks for the question.
A lot of customers in the past have bought microfire cameras. As most of you have found out, the camera manufacturer didn't provide controlling software to support Windows 7. However, with version 10, we're now able to support microfire cameras in 32-bit mode so that your investment in that particular camera can continue. If you want other 64-bit or other Windows 7 options, please contact us, and we have several other camera options available.
One of which is the new Hamamatsu Orca Flash. That's a monochrome camera that works in 32 or 64-bit Windows 7 operation. And I've used this before also with Epitome imaging as I'm testing out the hardware and software. And it works great. And so this is just one of many options that can be integrated into your system. With open confocal support, we now have the capacity to read in native confocal image file formats. So we can read in the Nikon IDS and the Olympus OIB file formats. Virtual slide scanners are increasing in popularity, and we want to make sure that if you have that piece of hardware, you can bring in that image data that you've acquired with that slide scanner into Stereo Investigator, Neurolucida, Densita, or Microlucida for data analysis. So if you have a NanoZoomer or an Apereo slide scanner, we can read those file formats.
To make it easier to port our data into other applications, we're now able in version 10 to read and write XML files. So our tracing data can be parsed much easier by going to XML. It makes it much more portable to go into applications like MATLAB or into other programming languages like Java or C++.
So now let's move on to the pure software. We want to increase your productivity and make our software easier to use. Some of the things that we've spent a lot of time and effort on include improvements to visualization, image montage creation, editing, and data sharing. And we hope that many of these will find their way into your hands and your lab so that you can get your data faster. Many of you are familiar with our 3D visualization module, and now it's free. It's included with your version 10 upgrade. You can transform your serial section tracings into realistic 3D models. You can create models with your tracing data overlaid with the images, as you saw here, so long as you have the image stack module. You can rapidly generate publication quality graphics and animation. Anybody that's reconstructed neurons from a set of image stacks knows how hard it can be. Older versions of Neurolucida and Stereo Investigator provided tools for these adjustments, but as demand and image data increased, so did the need for tools tailored for this task. So here's an example. We've got manually acquired confocal image stacks of overlapping fields of view of a single field neuron.
This set of images was acquired from outside of our application, in this case with the Zeiss LSM confocal. There are 18 stacks. All of them have different overlapping amounts, and all of them have various Z depths. So in other words, there is no system on how these should be put together in coordinate space. They just have image data that needs to be put together.
So we've created tools to display and help you align your image stacks to turn it into something that looks like this. So we thought we'd show you that in our software as a demonstration. So I'm running version 10 of Stereo Investigator. I'll go to File, Images for Montage Open. We'll select the cell montage because that's where my stacks are. I'm holding the Shift key so that I select all of those image stacks. I'm going to select Open. It'll ask me to confirm the scaling. And then all of the image stacks will be loaded. We'll go to Image, Maximum Intensity Projection. Good. And now we can see all of the image stacks. Let's make that a little bit easier to see. So the first thing that happens is when we load these images using the montage tool, you can see that they're coming up in a grid pattern. This makes it easier to see what you have to work with. And now if we go to Image, Image Montage, we get a new toolbar that pops up, as well as a change to how the image data is actually being reported on the display screen. You can see that the file names are being reported and a little box around each stack so you can see what's going on. Now we can move these individually in space, or if I hold down the Shift key, I can move a couple of them at a time.
You notice as the movements are occurring, we're changing the transparency of the moving image so that you can easily see what piece of the stack matches the other piece.
Yep. So if you need to, you can do this. You can manually move each image stack into position. Or, my personal favorite, you can select the button that Chris Thomas put in, which says automatically align images in X, Y, and Z. So we'll do that. And the algorithm works first in aligning the X, Y. And then it'll work in Z, and you can see now all of these image stacks have been properly put into registration. You don't have to use LSM files. This will work with any input stack. It could be Olympus, it could be 2-photon, it could be just wide field fluorescence if you'd like, or bright field. There's no necessity. It could be 2D also. And in that case, you would just select the automatically align images in X, Y.
It's also important to know that the data persists. After you align your stack, you can save it. You can either save it as one big file, one big JPX file, or you can save it in one of our data files, which will save the image stack positions or the image positions.
Okay. One other thing I just want to point out is that we also have different side views. I didn't show that before. So now you can see the XY view here. And then if we bring up the XZ window, you can see the image stacks and move them individually if anything needs to be nudged or improved upon from the automatic view. We also have it for YZ as well. So moving on from image montaging, we now have a way to do deconvolution within our software. Scientific volume imaging has been a leader in image deconvolution for a number of years. Their Huygens deconvolution, which produced this improvement over the wide field image here, was done by James Evans at MIT. We have integrated the Huygens deconvolution directly within our software.
Here you see how our application makes use of the Huygens deconvolution engine. It's accessible inside all of our applications on either image stacks that have been acquired by our applications and image stacks that were loaded into our applications. It also allows us to take advantage of the JPEG 2000 file format that's built into our applications as well. In addition, if the deconvolution needs exceed what is integrated into the Huygens deconvolution engine in our applications, we are now, MBF is now an authorized reseller of standalone SVI products such as Huygens Essentials.
So let's take a look at what deconvolution can get you. So here's an example image of a wide field maximum intensity projection. And then once we run it through the Huygens deconvolution, again, remember that this is a post-processing imaging algorithm. So it's after the image has been acquired that we're going to run deconvolution to try to improve the image quality. You can see that after Huygens, a fair amount of the out-of-focus light has been removed, leaving a crisper image. So here's another example. Before deconvolution, you can see that there is a lot of extreme brightness and a lot of haze and fog. And after we run deconvolution, you can see that a number of that haze is now been removed from the image itself, producing a much crisper image. Deconvolution, we were just asked by Rob Murata if deconvolution is available in Neurolucida or just Stereo Investigator. It's an add-on module, so deconvolution is a module because not everybody needs it, but it is available in either software product. So we've also made some changes to how image display is done in our software. You're familiar with the image adjustment window, but we've added some features to make it a little bit easier to use and more utilitarian. So we have an automatically optimized black and white points of the image because we now added this optimize button. You can adjust multiple images at once. If you have multiple images loaded in your image organizer, you can select this checkbox and apply all changes that are selected in the image organizer at once. So if you're making adjustments to the red channel and you have this box checked, it will adjust the red channel equivalently all the way through each selected image.
Each file has an Xmp Sidecar that prevents the image data from being overwritten. What we try as hard as possible, we try to preserve the raw image data as it comes from the camera, or as it was loaded into our application. And what the sidecar does is any adjustment that's made to it is kept in the sidecar as to not disrupt the original image data. So if you want if you make adjustments to an image, the sidecar will show those adjustments the next time you bringing this file up in our application. But if you need to get back to the original raw image data, all you have to do is hit the reset, and that will take you and get you the original image data.
We have another question on Huygens. Troy Hackett asks whether or not, if he already has Huygens, can version 10 read these files? The answer is absolutely. We tried very hard to make sure everybody plays nice together. We've also increased the cohesion between additional tools, not just image adjustment and image organizer, but also between the macro view and image organizer. So in macro view, you can now select an image, right-click, and say set to current image. And in that case, the image organizer, or the image in the image organizer, will be selected. You can also link images to sections in the Serial Section Manager. I'm going to demonstrate this in just a minute. Finally, some more display features that are new for version 10 include ways to make it easier to generate images that are suitable for publication and presentations. We've been asked a lot for a way to demonstrate what systematic random sampling really is when you're doing stereology, and we've introduced the screenshot tool to make it easy to do so. And so if you have your tissue in your probe run, if you say select draw sites, it will now overlay the counting frame or Spaceballs probe, whichever your probe is, across the tissue. And then using the screenshot tool, you will get an image of what's in the display window. Crop image is another tool that can be very handy to select only a portion of what's displayed.
Something to think about, the crop image it can be used on anything that is loaded into our applications. If you have a stack, we will crop X, Y, and Z. We will take a core of what you want, and we'll make the stack of the same size all the way down in Z as well. Even if it's the montage the montage stack that Sue created just a few minutes ago, if you have that, save it as a JPX file, we'll crop that image set as well.
So let's show you some of these things. I'm going to switch back to Stereo Investigator. I'm going to start a new file because I'm going to work with a different image set. I'm going to bring in a virtual slice file. And here, as you can see in the macro view, there are a number of physical sections that are embedded together and then sectioned in one small block. And we'll zoom out a little bit so you can see here is an entire brain section. And for one of the analyses that we need to do, we need to outline the entire cerebrum so that we can calculate the volume within. The tool that we use to do this is automatic object detection. And so that's under the imaging toolbar. And so we're going to select outline detected objects. There are a number of options that you can select. And basically what you do is you play around with each of these settings until it provides the resolution that you need for your data collection. I've already created a preset, which is I've already determined what I need in order to identify the boundaries of each section. And I'll select it. And now hopefully you can see the blue line that has gone all the way around each of these hemisections here. So now that we've approved, I'm satisfied with how it looks in this preview mode. You can see that only one section is outlined here at a time. So we haven't gone and done the detection for all objects. I'm going to select outline objects. And in fact, I'm very happy with this preview. So I'm going to outline my objects. And now you can see that each section in my virtual slide image has now been outlined. So let's adjust the thickness so that it's easier for everybody to see. I'm going to go to Select All Objects, Modify Thickness, and just make it a little bit fatter so it's easier for everybody to see. I'm going to take this opportunity to show you some other stuff as well. If you'd like to do multi-point selection, so multi-point editing, oops. Select Objects, you right-click and say Select Points on Contours. And now you can select individual points. You can see that they're highlighted in red where the other points have a white center. And now we could move those selected points or delete them. And so this is one way that we can easily modify certain points in our contours without the tediousness of doing each one individually. There's a couple other things I'd like to show at this time. I wanted to show you how you can link regions in your image to the serial sections in Serial Section Manager. And so this is a good example because we have a number of physical sections here that represent this virtual slide image. So I'm going to, oops, I undocked that. I'm going to start the Serial Section Manager. And I'll just, for demonstration purposes, I'll just say we've got 4 sections. And they're 20 microns apart. So now the serial sections have been generated for me. Now I can select these sections, right-click, and place the contours into section. I'll choose the section that they belong into, and now I'm going to repeat the process. Just a couple more times. Okay, so now what you can see is now when I move between the sections in the Serial Section Manager, it takes me to the right section. This is great if you've got a lot of data, all contained within one image file. So carrying on, user profiles made an appearance in version 9, and the profiles were designed to handle multiple users within a lab or within a core facility so that you could set up the workplace, the workstation, as you wanted to. So if you had named all your markers, you could retain those even when the next person in the lab launched the software and changed the markers for their purposes. So we've made some improvements to it so that it's easier to use and has a bit more power. So you can now use the same user profile for all of our applications, Neurolucida, Stereo Investigator, Densita, or Microlucida.
What that means is if you have a, say you have a complicated device command sequence set up to do acquisitions, and you set it up on Neurolucida, you can take that profile, those settings necessary to make it happen on one application, and you can just import those into the other, across and into the other applications.
We also have introduced a default profile, and so what this means is if you have a core facility, you manage a core facility, or your lab has many users, you can set up a default profile that contains the basics. It contains the right hardware configurations and some of the basic needs that you may have for a particular task. And that will be the default when you select a new profile. It will automatically provide an import location for a default initialization file.
What this will buy you, if you're running a facility, when you add a new user to your system, they can begin working without needing to configure the hardware or calibrating the lenses. You just default the import, you just default the profile to, give them the default profile, and they'll be able to start working.
And finally, this is one of my favorites. The Windows layouts are now preserved with your profile import and when you upgrade. So your profile settings now include those Windows layout settings. So if you like to have the macro view over on your second monitor, when you upgrade the software, it's going to show up there the next time you launch the software. We've been able to do 2D virtual slides for quite a while, and now with version 10, we've increased capacity by a great deal. 3D virtual tissues are now becoming very commonplace around here, and a number of users are using them now to collect large virtual tissue specimens that could be large-scale or multi-scale for qualitative and quantitative histological analyses. These 3D virtual tissue captures allow exhaustive 3D quantitative analyses to be performed on a sample. Digitizing the samples makes fluorescently labeled tissues available in a durable and portable digital form with no loss from the original image quality. And that allows multiple or repeat analyses to be performed readily.
Some of you are probably wondering, what do I do with all this image data? How do I store it? How do I keep track of it? Keep an eye on a product we're coming out with called BioLucida. I think it is an image server, and it's where the virtual slides, the virtual tissue that you make is meant to be stored and accessed via BioLucida.
Chip Gerfen at NIH is one of our early adopters of 3D virtual slides, and he's creating many of them. And this is a maximum projection, maximum intensity projection of many fields of view that have been stitched together to make a seamless montage.
Also, the other thing, if you've been working with virtual slides in the past, you know that we had certain image size issues. Those have been overcome with our new way of capturing virtual tissue. So what was difficult to acquire now can be acquired with our new virtual tissue.
So MBF Labs uses Stereo Investigator for our contract research that we do for academic researchers, pharmaceutical companies, private foundations. And because we use Stereo Investigator a lot, we run into situations where we'd love it to do just a little bit more or make it a little bit easier. And it's great having Paul and all the other software developers so accessible, because they've made some changes that have made performing seriology a lot less tedious. The first one that they've done is that they've improved the Nucleator.
We've added a single middle marker click to be able to close your current Nucleator. It just reduces the clicks to go from it reduces the number of clicks you have to do while you're measuring. And also we have added a marker interval to the Nucleator, so if you're doing it in an optical fractionator, you don't have to do every cell. You don't have to measure every cell. You can do it on a sampling of your cells.
Yeah. Spaceballs, if you're using Spaceballs to estimate the length of objects within your region of interest, you can now directly export those results to Excel. And major changes have been made to speed up Cavalieri and area fraction fractionator.
I think the numbers were something like a couple of thousand. This is something that comes from MBF Labs again. There were to do a certain operation repetitively was several thousand clicks, and we ended up reducing the number of clicks to like 12. So it was a big advancement. They could get a lot more work done in a shorter period of time.
And not have sore wrists at the end of the operation, which was good. New for version 10 includes these hotkeys to select next and previous marker or contour. This is pretty handy if you are tracing lots of different regions of interest, or if you're using markers to represent a number of different things. Now, instead of having to wander over to the marker toolbar or select it from the drop-down list, you can use Alt-B or Alt-N to go to previous or next marker or contour. And finally, I demonstrated multi-point editing in Stereo Investigator. It also exists in Neurolucida as well, as does the hotkeys to do previous and next marker or contour. Another thing that's new in Stereo Investigator is the 3D probe viewer. So if you are doing SRS image stack acquire so that you can count offline, we have a new tool to make it a little bit easier for you to do your counting. So you can dynamically visualize your images and probes in 3 dimensions. So we're used to seeing this view here where the counting frame is superimposed on the image stack, and then you page through the stack and mark the objects as they come into focus. Now we can superimpose that dissector onto your image stack using that same engine that's in the 3D solids 3D visualization module. And what that allows us to do is rotate the stack with the dissector so that we can then make more informed decisions about whether or not the object should be marked. And so this cell here, when we rotate it, looks like it would be a good candidate. But now, once we rotate a little bit more, you can see that the top itself is actually outside the dissector, so you wouldn't meet the criteria to be counted. This can be a handy tool. You can use this 3D probe viewer to generate images and movies for publications and talks as well.
Neurolucida Explorer has had a few, for those of you who have used open delineations to get information on our layer analysis, the number and distribution of spines and nodes were added to the results. And also, we've just added an enhanced segment point analysis, and it gives measurement information on each traced point. It'll give you information on length, volume, surface area, diameter, and spine counts across each point of your traced neuron. This is from a customer request. I saw Dr. Murata ask the question earlier. It's Dr. Robert Murata from Queen's University asked us to do this and provided the information and the data that, and asked for a particular report. I'm glad. I wanted to thank him personally for the input on the new analysis. And I also wanted to pass along that he had a subsequent request for a change to the report. I want to let you know that that was done last week. I'm sure that a number of you are wondering when version 10 is going to be released. I guess I'll suffice it to say that the building I learned this long ago, that building software is a jello mold, and as you're building it early on, the jello mold is shaking and shaking, and as you get closer and closer to release, the jello mold shakes less and less, and once it stops shaking, you ship it. This jello mold is getting close. It's still getting poked a little bit. It's still getting prodded some, but it's getting very, very solid. I would say it's going to be become very solid and shipped in a very timely fashion, certainly within weeks.
So Maran asks a question about whether or not large data sets or image sets would require 64-bit environments. That's a good question, and the short answer is sure. The bigger your image data requires, the more you can benefit from more processor.
More memory is always better. 64 bits is always, the more addressable memory space is always a welcome thing. A lot of things can work in 32-bit or in low memory environments, but the work that has to happen to make that occur is probably more than necessary. The best is a 64-bit system with lots and lots of memory.
One of our test systems that we use regularly, just to give you an example, is a Windows 7 64-bit machine with 24 gigs of RAM, and so that's a lot. Dr. Patel asks if it's possible to upgrade the software, or will we have to buy a new imaging system altogether? This is version 10, so upgrading your software to version 10 will give you these features. There are additional modules, such as the image montage module, image stack module, virtual tissue module, that represent add-ons to the base software. And those perform specific functions, add functionality that isn't necessary for all applications. And so those would be additional modules. And we'd be happy to talk to you about upgrading, certainly. Windows XP can use version 10. There's no reason it can't. If you run into issues, you may run into issues if you want to do something that's very data heavy, very memory intensive, like manipulating many images in 3D visualization window. But if that's the case, you know that the solution is to get a faster computer. So Paul gave the wiggling jello analogy about how software is actually built. That's a good, good story.
Yeah. As soon as version 10 solidifies and stuff's jiggling, or perhaps we stop poking it, we're going to hit it with a couple other things that are probably considered more than pokes. There are probably going to be some rather sizable slaps up along the side of the jello. So.
But we have a number of things that are coming on the horizon that will not be part of version 10, but are coming later. And we just wanted to, put these on your radar screen so that if you're looking for this type of functionality, we are working on it. AutoNeuron is coming out with a new edition, version 5.0. And it's got interactive tracing.
The interactive tracing improvements over the version that ships now are spectacular and wonderful. It is really great. This AutoNeuron and AutoSpine are in beta 2 right now. I don't know what the maximum number of betas will be at this point, but people are using it, people are seeing it, and we're, it's as I said before, it's jiggling too much right now, but it's starting to get solid.
AutoSpine, which is automatic spine detection, is a new product that we're working on, and that is also in beta, and we hope to release that this year as well. Biolucida is something that I've been working on since I started with the company 5 years ago, and so I'm just so ecstatic that it's now becoming to the point where it's going to be released and people can start using it. Biolucida is an image server and viewer. So if you have images scattered across multiple hard drives in various networks, and finding them is difficult for you to keep track of everything, Biolucida is meant to give you the opportunity to keep all of your images in one easy to manage place so that you can share those image data with your colleagues across the hall or across the world via the internet, and also do analyses on them in Stereo Investigator and Neurolucida.
Yeah, there's a tight integration to our applications. We are always adding hardware, new hardware support, whether it be cameras, whether it be motorized stages, whether it's different illumination devices. We are always adding hardware. One of the things that I'm told it's a little too early to announce is Lucivid, but I know there are a number of Lucivid users out there, and while I'm not allowed to tell you that something is, we have a new Lucivid ready, or a new Lucivid is on the horizon, I will tell you that I saw a prototype of the Lucivid that was very, very promising. It's color, it's 4-color, or it's monochrome, and it's very promising, and we're very excited about it. So keep an eye out if you're a Lucivid user.
So we only had time today to show you just a snippet of some of the things that are coming out in version 10. Send any of your questions that you have right now. We've got a couple more minutes to address some questions. And if we don't get to them by the end of the webinar, you can email any that come up to you later on to info@mbfbioscience.com. Also, please feel free to visit our websites at mbfbioscience.com or MBF Labs, as well as an informative site for stereology theory and application information called stereology.info. We'll be posting version 10 tips and videos weekly to Facebook. So if you are on Facebook, you can go there to get some tips and tricks. So we have a question asking if it's necessary to buy a separate 3D module or if it comes inbuilt with the version 10 as default. With version 10, 3D visualization is included, so you no longer have to pay extra for 3D visualization for Neurolucida or Stereo Investigator. We've been asked if we've gotten enough requests for the development of vessel-specific analysis software. Dr. Warrington, please email me. My email is susan@mbfbioscience.com. I would love to talk to you more about that.
Patrick Schwab asked, do you as well take care of the coordinates of Zeiss LSM or Olympus OIF if you mosaic images? Yes, we read the scaling. We read whatever information is accessible to us in those files, and we'll place it into our coordinate space appropriately.
We're asked if Biolucida is a hardware solution. Actually, Biolucida is pure software. It is meant to be a method for containing all of your image data. If you want, you can also get a specific Biolucida server, which will work together with the Biolucida application software so that we provide a complete solution. You guys, thanks so much for your attention. This has been just incredible. I hope that you got a chance to see some of the things that we're going to be available to you in version 10 and that it's got you a little bit excited for when that's released. We're asked by Brett Schofield if there's any limit to the number of fluorescent channels that can be acquired from an image. We acquire up to N channels.
We can acquire. We have it. There's nothing. We have it set to 6 right now because no one's ever asked us to do more than that. But we can certainly do more than 6. We can certainly display more than 6. But the acquisition, if you need more than 6, it would take a little while, but not a whole lot. But we can do up to 6 right now. Built into our app. That's how the UI is built, but there's nothing that limits our application from going to N channels.
And in fact, we modified the JPEG 2000 file format to be able to acquire more than 3 channels worth of image data. And so if you are going to acquire 4+ channels, you should save your image data as an MBF JPEG 2000, either as a JP2 or JPX, in order to retain that information. So I think we'll call it quits for today. Please email any additional questions that you have directly to info@mbfbioscience.com and be on the lookout for version 10. It'll be released soon. Thanks. Have a great day.